I still remember the exact moment I realized my father hated me. Not disliked, not misunderstood, hated. It was a cold October evening in Ohio, the kind where the sky turns gray before dinner and the air smells like dying leaves and chimney smoke. I was 11 years old, standing in the doorway of our living room, holding a school certificate with my name printed in bold black letters at the top. Outstanding academic achievement. I had practiced what I was going to say all afternoon. Dad, look, I got first place. I was smiling when I said it. Smiling like a kid who still believed approval was something you earned. He didn't even look at the paper. He looked at my face. And something dark crossed his eyes. Something sharp. Something almost disgusted. "Whose kid are you really?" he asked. The room went silent. My smile froze, half-formed, like it had forgotten how to exist. My mother, standing by the kitchen sink, dropped a glass. Shattered, but no one moved to clean it up. I didn't understand his words back then. Not fully. But I understood the tone. I understood that whatever I was in that moment, I wasn't his daughter. That night was the first time he used the word affair. He didn't shout it. He didn't whisper it either. He said it casually, like you'd say the weather was bad or the car needed gas. "You think I don't see it," he told my mother. "She doesn't look like me. Never has. She's too pretty. Too different. You expect me to believe she's mine. Too pretty." That phrase followed me for the next 17 years like a curse. From that day on, our house stopped feeling like a home and started feeling like a courtroom, one where I was always on trial and never allowed to defend myself. At school, teachers said I was polite, quiet, well-behaved. At home, my father said I was manipulative. Fake. Just like her real father, whoever that was supposed to be. I learned early not to cry in front of him. Crying only made it worse. "Of course you'd cry," he'd say. That's what liars do when they're caught. But caught doing what? Existing? I started watching my reflection too, studying my face like evidence. My lighter hair. My green eyes, no one else in the family had them. My skin that tanned easily in summer while my parents burned. At family gatherings, relatives would joke, "Where'd she get those looks from?" My father would smile thinly and say, "Not from me." Everyone laughed. I didn't. By the time I turned 13, the jokes stopped being jokes. He stopped calling me by my name. Instead, it was "your daughter" when he spoke to my mother. Or worse, nothing at all. I wasn't grounded like other kids. I was ignored. And somehow that hurt more. My mother never defended me the way I wanted her to. She'd flinch when he spoke, lower her eyes, change the subject. At night, I'd hear them arguing in hushed voices through the thin walls. His voice sharp. Hers shaking. "I didn't cheat," she'd say again and again. "I know what I see," he'd reply. "And I'm not raising another man's mistake." Mistake. That word wrapped itself around my chest and stayed there. On my 15th birthday, he didn't come to dinner. Didn't leave a card. Didn't say a word. My mom baked a cake anyway, hands trembling as she lit the candles. "Make a wish," she said softly. I wished to disappear. In high school, things got worse. Kids whispered. Someone's parent overheard something. Small towns are good at that, turning secrets into entertainment. One girl asked me straight to my face, "Is it true your dad thinks you're not his?" I laughed like it didn't matter. But it did. Every single day. At 17, the breaking point came. We were sitting at the dinner table when he finally said what he'd been hinting at my entire life. "I want a DNA test." The fork slipped from my hand and clattered onto the plate. My mother went pale. "Please," she whispered. "After all these years?" "I deserve the truth," he snapped. "If she's not mine, I'm done pretending. Pretending. As if loving your child was an act." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat felt like it had closed forever. The test was done a week later. Quick. Clinical. Cold. When the results came back, he opened the envelope with shaking hands and a smile. Not a happy smile, a victorious one. He read it once, then again. Then he sat down hard like his legs had given out. "She's not mine," he said. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. My mother let out a sound I'd never heard before, half sob, half scream. I felt nothing. Not shock. Not relief. Just emptiness. But then he laughed. A bitter, broken laugh. "And she's not yours, other." The room spun. "What?" I whispered. The paper slipped from his fingers and landed on the floor between us like a bomb. Not his. Not hers. For 17 years, I had been hated for a lie that wasn't even real. And I had no idea, none at all, that the real nightmare hadn't even begun yet. After the DNA results, nothing exploded the way I expected. No screaming. No apologies. No one holding me and saying, "We're so sorry." Instead, our house went quiet in the most dangerous way possible. The kind of quiet where doors don't slam, but hearts do. My father didn't look at me anymore. Not even with hatred. Hatred would have meant I still mattered. This was worse. This was erasure. He started sleeping on the couch. Then some nights he didn't come home at all. My mother stopped cooking full meals. We lived on cereal, toast, and silence. Her eyes were always red, her hands always shaking. She'd open her mouth like she wanted to say something, then close it again, as if the words burned too much. And me? I became a ghost in my own life. The town was very much alive. Small American towns don't need proof. They need whispers. And whispers spread faster than truth ever could. By the next week, people looked at me differently. Teachers paused before saying my last name. Parents at PTA meetings leaned in a little closer when my mom walked by. At the grocery store, conversations stopped when I entered the aisle. One woman I'd known since childhood smiled at me with pity and said, "You're so strong." Given everything. I didn't know what everything meant yet, but I learned fast. Someone told someone. Someone overheard something. And suddenly, the story wasn't just that I wasn't my father's daughter. The story was that I was the result of an affair. The affair child. That label stuck to me like glue. At school, kids didn't ask questions anymore, they made statements. "So who's your real dad? Does your mom even know who he is? Are you, like, adopted or something?" I pretended I didn't care. I wore headphones. I kept my head down. I smiled when teachers praised my grades like success could erase shame. But every time someone laughed behind my back, it felt like my chest cracked a little more. The worst part? My father didn't deny any of it. When someone once asked him directly at a barbecue, "Hey man, rough situation with your daughter, huh?" He took a sip of beer and said, "Not my daughter." Just like that. I was standing 10 feet away. He knew I could hear him. That night, I locked myself in my room and stared at my reflection for hours. I searched my face like it held answers. Whose eyes were these? Whose nose? Whose blood ran through my veins? I started to hate my own beauty. The thing he'd used as evidence against me. I wore baggy clothes, pulled my hair back tight, tried to look invisible, but the town wouldn't let me disappear. At church, people prayed louder around us. At school, counselors offered support. At home, my father avoided me like I was contagious. Once, I overheard him say to my mother, "You ruined my life." She didn't argue. She just cried. Graduation came and went like a blur. My father didn't attend, didn't clap, didn't take photos. When I left for college, barely 2 hours away, no one hugged me goodbye. My mother pressed some cash into my hand and whispered, "I'm so sorry." For what? She didn't explain. College should have been freedom. A fresh start. Place where no one knew my past. But trauma doesn't stay behind just because you change locations. I flinched when people asked about my family. I lied without thinking. "We're not close." My dad travels. It's complicated. Every lie was easier than the truth, because the truth was this. For 17 years, I had been punished for a sin no one could even prove existed. And now, according to science, I didn't belong to either of the people who raised me. I wasn't an affair child. I was something worse, a mistake no one could explain. And deep down, in a place I didn't want to touch yet, a terrifying question began to form. If I wasn't theirs, then whose was I? People think the worst pain comes from being hated. It doesn't. The worst pain comes from being watched silently, like everyone's waiting for you to confess to something you don't even understand. After I left for college, my father and I didn't speak at all. No calls, no texts, no "are you alive?" messages. It was like the moment the DNA test proved I wasn't his, he finally felt free to erase me. But my mother stayed. Physically, emotionally, she was already disappearing. Whenever I tried to talk about the past, she'd shut down instantly. "Please," she'd say, eyes filling with tears. "Let's not open that door." But that door had never been closed for me. It lived in my head, in my dreams, in the quiet moments when I wondered why a woman who claimed she didn't cheat also never fought to protect her child. That question haunted me. Why didn't you defend me? Why did you let him destroy me slowly, day by day? During my second year of college, I finally asked her directly. We were sitting in a diner off the highway, one of those old American places with cracked vinyl seats and weak coffee. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Like guilt had physically weighed her down. "Mom," I said carefully, "did you ever doubt I was yours?" Her spoon froze midair. "No," she whispered. "Never." "Then why?" My voice shook. "Why did you let him call me that? Why did you let the whole town believe I was the result of an affair?" Her hands started trembling so badly she had to put the spoon down. "I was scared," she said. "Your father, he wasn't always like that. But he had been. At least to me." "You watched him hate me," I said. "For 17 years." She finally looked at me then, and there was something in her eyes that scared me more than anger ever could. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. "There are things," she said slowly, "that I promised never to talk about." My heart started racing. "Promise too." She shook her head violently. "I can't. I just can't." That was the moment I realized something was very wrong. This wasn't just about my father's jealousy, or small-town gossip, or a broken marriage. This was about a secret so big it had turned my mother into a shadow of herself. After that day, she stopped answering my calls regularly. When she did, she sounded distracted, nervous, like someone listening for footsteps in the background. Then one night I got a voicemail at 2:14 a.m. Her voice was barely audible. "If anyone ever asks you questions," she whispered, "about the hospital where you were born, don't answer. Please." The call ended abruptly. I sat on my dorm bed staring at my phone, my hands cold. What hospital? Why would anyone ask me questions? And why did she sound like she was afraid of being overheard? That was the night my childhood finally cracked open completely. I started digging. Birth records, old photos, documents my parents had kept locked away. I noticed things I'd never questioned before. Dates that didn't line up, missing signatures, a birth certificate that looked too clean, too perfect, like it had been reissued. I confronted my father once, stupidly hoping for answers. "All I know," he said flatly, "is that you're not mine, and you're not hers. Whatever you are, it's not my problem anymore." That sentence hurt more than every insult before it, because it wasn't anger. It was relief. He was relieved to be rid of me. A few weeks later, my mother finally admitted one thing. Just one. "You were born at St. Mary's," she said quietly. "But I didn't bring you home." My breath caught. "What do you mean you didn't bring me home?" She started crying, hard, uncontrollable sobs. "Someone else did." And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. The DNA test hadn't uncovered the truth. It had only scratched the surface. And the real story, the one buried in hospital walls, sealed files, and a nurse who had stayed silent for nearly 3 decades, was about to come out. Whether anyone was ready or not, the night everything finally slipped out wasn't dramatic. No lightning, no screaming, no sudden confession. Just a thin wall, a half-open door, and 2 adults who thought I was asleep. I was 19 and home for winter break, lying in my childhood bedroom, the same room where I'd learned how to cry silently. The house felt smaller than I remembered. Heavier. Like the walls themselves were holding secrets. I heard my mother's voice first. Low. Urgent. Panicked. "You promised me," she said. My father answered, slower than usual. Not angry. Not cruel. Nervous. "That was years ago," he replied. "No one's going to dig this up now." My stomach tightened. Dig what up? I slid off the bed and pressed my ear to the door. The hallway light was on. Their shadows stretched across the floor like strangers. "She's asking questions," my mother whispered. "She knows something's wrong. She always knew," he said. "That's why you should have kept her quiet." My heart started pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. "Kept me quiet?" My mother's voice broke. "She's our child." There was a pause. Then my father said something that froze my blood. "She was never supposed to be." I covered my mouth to keep from making a sound. "What do you mean?" my mother asked, fear seeping into every word. "I mean," he exhaled sharply, "if that nurse had done her job properly, none of this would be happening." Nurse. The word echoed in my head. The same word my mother had mentioned in that late-night voicemail. The same hospital. The same fear. My mother started crying again. "Please don't say it like that." "We made a choice. A selfish one," he snapped. "You wanted a baby so badly you didn't care where she came from." I felt dizzy. Where she came from? My father lowered his voice. "You swore you'd never tell her. That you'd protect everyone." "I was trying to protect her," my mother sobbed. "By lying to her entire life," he shot back. "By letting me take the blame?" Silence fell. Then came the sentence that destroyed the last fragile piece of my childhood. "She was switched," my father said quietly. "You know that." My knees nearly gave out. Switched. Not adopted. Not an affair. Switched. At the hospital. I staggered back to my bed, my head spinning so hard I thought I might pass out. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. All those years of hatred. All those accusations. All that pain. For a hospital mistake? No. For something worse. Because mistakes don't come with promises. Mistakes don't involve silence that lasts decades. Mistakes don't make grown adults afraid of nurses. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every word, every pause, every hesitation. Suddenly, memories I'd buried started resurfacing. My mother avoiding hospital talk, my father changing the subject whenever someone mentioned childbirth, the way they never celebrated my birthday at the actual hospital. By morning, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't unwanted because I was an affair child. I was unwanted because I wasn't supposed to exist in this family at all. And somewhere out there, another family had been raising a child who should have been me. The question wasn't if the truth would come out anymore. It was who would survive it when it did. By morning, I was done being quiet. 17 years of silence had already stolen enough from me. I waited until my father left for work. The sound of the door closing felt final, like a judge's gavel. My mother sat at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Her hands were shaking. "You heard us," she said before I could speak. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I replied. My voice didn't sound like mine. "Every word." She closed her eyes, like that alone might undo the damage. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she whispered. "Then how?" I asked. After I spent my whole life being called a mistake? Her shoulders slumped. That DNA test, she said quietly, was never meant for you. I frowned. What does that mean? She took a deep breath, like someone about to jump into cold water. Your father ordered it to prove I cheated, she said. He wanted evidence. Something he could throw in my face. Something that would make me the villain forever. So why did you agree to it? I asked. Why let him do that to me? Because I thought, she said, tears streaming down her face, that once the results came back, it would end. End. I laughed bitterly. It didn't. No, she said. It didn't. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a folded envelope. Old. Yellowed. My name written on it in shaky handwriting. I kept this, she said. I told myself I'd give it to you when the time was right. I took it with trembling hands. Inside was a photocopy of the DNA report. But this one was different. It wasn't just paternity. It was maternity too. And next to my mother's name in cold black letters were the words, probability of maternity 0%. My vision blurred. You tested me against yourself? I whispered. She nodded. Years ago. Quietly. Before your father ever demanded his test. Why? My voice cracked. Because the nurse wouldn't meet my eyes, she said. Because the hospital records didn't make sense. Because the baby they handed me didn't feel right. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Didn't feel right. You knew, I said. You knew something was wrong and you still let him hate me. I was terrified, she cried. If I pushed too hard, they would have taken you away. They. The word sent a chill down my spine. Who is they? I asked. She wiped her face, breathing unevenly. St. Mary's had a scandal years before you were born, she said slowly. Babies. Records. A nurse who disappeared overnight. My heart started pounding. So the DNA test, I said. It proved what I was afraid of, she nodded. You weren't mine. And if your father found out I'd known, even suspected, he would have left. Or worse. Worse. I didn't want to know what worse meant. That test was supposed to ruin me, she continued. Expose me as a cheater. Instead, it exposed the hospital. I sank into the chair across from her, my entire body numb. So I was blamed, I said quietly, to protect everyone else. She didn't deny it. She just whispered, I'm sorry. For the first time in my life, I didn't know who to hate more. The father who despised me, or the mother who sacrificed me. And deep inside, another terrifying thought began to form. If the DNA test proved my mother wasn't my mother, then somewhere out there was a woman who had been mourning a child she never actually lost. And the lie was about to destroy more than just our family. The second DNA test was my idea, not because I trusted science anymore, but because I didn't trust anyone. Not my parents. Not the hospital. Not my own memories. I needed something cold, unemotional, something that didn't care who got hurt. When the lab confirmed they could run a full genetic comparison, including extended family markers, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely sign the consent form. My mother sat beside me, silent, smaller than ever, like someone who already knew the ending and was just waiting for the curtain to fall. This one, I told her, goes to my email. Not yours. Not his. She nodded. 3 weeks felt like 3 years. Every day I replayed my childhood in my head, every insult, every sideways look, every moment my father treated me like a stranger. I wondered how many people had known, how many had suspected, how many had chosen silence. When the email finally arrived, I didn't open it right away. I stared at the subject line until my chest hurt. Genetic analysis complete. No names. No comfort. Just facts. I clicked. The report loaded slowly, like it was trying to prepare me. I scrolled past charts, percentages, terms I barely understood, until I reached the section labeled Close Genetic Matches. My breath caught. There were names, real people, not my parents, not even close. One woman stood out immediately. Same rare eye color, same blood type, same ethnic markers my family never shared. Relationship probability, mother 99.98%. I felt sick. Her name was unfamiliar, but her age matched perfectly. She lived 3 states away. Middle America. Ordinary. Married. 2 kids listed on public records. 2 kids. One more than she should have had. I kept scrolling, and then I saw the next line. Relationship probability, father 99.99%. A different last name. A different life. A man I had never heard of. And yet, something about his photo, yes, there was a photo, made my chest tighten. My smile. My jaw. My face. I slammed the laptop shut. No, I whispered. This wasn't closure. This was chaos. I called my mother into the room. She sat down slowly as I reopened the file. Her face drained of color as she read. "Oh my God," she breathed. "They found them." "They didn't find them," I said. "They found me." For the first time, she didn't argue. She just cried. "Do you recognize the names?" I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "The woman," she said softly, "was in the maternity ward the same night I was." My blood ran cold. "And the man," she swallowed hard. "He was there too. Visiting. Waiting. Angry. Angry? Why angry?" I asked. "Because," she said, voice barely audible, "his baby never came home." The room started spinning. That was when everything finally fell into place. This wasn't just a switch. This was a theft. And someone had made sure it stayed buried. I looked back at the screen, at the strangers who shared my DNA, my face, my blood. They were alive. They were real. And they had no idea that the child they had buried in their hearts was sitting right here. The question now wasn't whether I should contact them. It was whether the truth would destroy them the way it had destroyed me. And I had a terrifying feeling. Someone else already knew this day was coming. I didn't contact them right away. Not the woman listed as my biological mother. Not the man whose face mirrored mine like a cruel joke. Because once you open that door, there's no pretending your old life ever existed. Instead, I went after the place that had stolen it from all of us. St. Mary's Hospital. The building still stood on the same corner. Brick walls, white pillars, a statue of an angel out front like it had something to atone for. From the outside, it looked peaceful. Respectable. Inside, it felt like a graveyard of paperwork. I requested my birth records under my legal name. Clerk smiled politely, typed for a moment, then frowned. "That's strange," she said. My heart skipped. "What?" "There are 2 files," she replied. Same date, same time, same delivery room. The air left my lungs. 2 files. She disappeared into the back office and returned with a supervisor, an older woman with sharp eyes and a tone that had learned how to shut conversations down. "Some records from that era are incomplete," the supervisor said carefully. There was a system transition, a lie. I'd heard that phrase before. In movies. In scandals. I leaned forward. One of those babies was me. The other one wasn't. And someone switched us. Her jaw tightened. "Do you have proof?" she asked. I slid the DNA report across the counter. She didn't touch it. Didn't need to. Her face told me everything. "We'll need time," she said. "To review. How much time?" I asked. She hesitated. "Those files are sensitive." "No," I said quietly. "They're dangerous." That's when she finally looked scared. A week later, I got a call I wasn't supposed to get. From a retired hospital administrator. He didn't give his name. "You didn't hear this from me," he said, voice low and strained. "But you need to stop digging." My hands went cold. Why? Because, he said, what happened in that ward wasn't an accident, and not everyone involved is dead. I felt sick. Who was involved? I demanded. There was a long pause. Then he said the name my mother had been afraid of for decades. The night shift nurse. She controlled intake, paperwork, wristbands. The nurse, the same one who had disappeared. She falsified records, he continued. Moved babies. Took bribes. Covered mistakes. Mistakes. No choices. One family had money, he said. The other didn't. My vision blurred with rage. So I was given away, I whispered. No, he corrected me. You were taken. The call ended abruptly. No warning. No goodbye. That night I drove past my childhood home and didn't stop. I realized I didn't belong there anymore. I never had. Everything I believed about my parents, my pain, my identity, it all collapsed under one brutal truth. My father didn't hate me because I was an affair child. He hated me because I was proof that something criminal had happened under his roof. And my mother didn't stay silent out of weakness. She stayed silent because she was terrified of losing me forever. Somewhere out there, a nurse had lived her life knowing she had destroyed two families with one decision. And I was done protecting her secret, because the last piece of the truth, the one that would change everything, was about to come from the only person left who knew exactly what happened that night. And she was finally ready to talk. Finding her wasn't easy. People like her don't leave forwarding addresses. The retired administrator's warning echoed in my head for days, but fear had already taken enough from me. I followed paper trails, old court mentions, voter records, crumbs left behind by someone who thought time had erased her sins. It hadn't. Her name surfaced in a quiet Florida town. Different last name, different hair, same age. When I knocked on her door, my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. She opened it slowly, and the moment her eyes landed on my face, I knew. She knew too. Oh, she whispered. That single word carried 30 years of guilt. You shouldn't be here, she said, trying to close the door. I stopped it with my hand. I was the baby, I said. From St. Mary's. The one you switched. Her face collapsed. She didn't scream, didn't deny it. She just stepped back, defeated. Come in, she muttered. Her living room smelled like old books and regret. Religious pictures lined the walls, crosses, angels, prayers framed in gold. Like forgiveness could be bought in bulk. She sat across from me, hands clasped tightly. I never thought you'd find me, she said. Yet you kept living, I replied. Well, I paid for it. Tears filled her eyes. You don't understand, she whispered. That night was chaos. Two babies born minutes apart. One family screaming. One begging. Begging for what? I snapped. For a healthy child, she said. The other baby wasn't breathing right away. My chest tightened. You're lying, I said. I'm not, she insisted. The wealthy couple, they panicked. Threatened lawsuits. Donations. Careers. So you stole me, I said flatly. She nodded. I switched the wristbands, she said. Changed the chart. I told myself I was saving a life. Whose? I asked. She didn't answer. Did the other baby die? I whispered. Her lips trembled. No, she said. She lived. Relief crashed into me, followed instantly by rage. Then why keep the lie? Because once I did it, she cried, I couldn't undo it. And when questions started being asked, the hospital covered it up. Promotions. Settlements. Silence. My hands were shaking. And my parents? I asked. Did they know? Your mother suspected, she admitted. Your father, he was warned to stop asking questions. Warned? By whom? They told him, she said softly, that pushing further would ruin his life. Everything snapped into place. His hatred, his fear, His relief when the DNA test came back wrong. He chose silence, I said. Yes, she whispered. He chose himself. I stood up, my legs weak. You destroyed 2 families, I said. And you slept at night? She sobbed. Not a single one. As I turned to leave, she said something that made me stop cold. The other mother, she said, never stopped looking. I faced her slowly. She always knew, the nurse continued. She felt it in her bones. And when your DNA test hit the database, she swallowed hard. She already knows you're alive. My phone vibrated in my pocket at that exact moment. An email notification from a name I didn't recognize, but somehow already loved. Subject, I think you're my daughter. And in that second, I understood something terrifying and beautiful all at once. The truth was finally free, but it was about to break everyone it touched. I didn't reply to the email right away. Not because I didn't want to, because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I think you're my daughter. 6 words. 6 words that carried more love than my father had ever shown me in 28 years. Before I could even process what that meant, my phone rang again. This time it was my father. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But something in my gut told me this call wasn't accidental. Where are you? He asked. His voice sounded wrong. Weak. Like something inside him had finally cracked. Why? I replied coldly. I know, he said. My heart stopped. Know what? There was a long silence. I could hear his breathing on the other end, uneven, broken. She found you, didn't she? He said. That was the moment I realized something horrifying. He had always known more than he admitted. Yes, I said slowly. She did. He let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. I tried to stop this, he whispered. I felt something inside me snap. You tried to stop the truth? I said. After ruining my life? You don't understand, he said desperately. If this comes out fully, I lose everything. Everything? I repeated. I lost my childhood. He didn't argue. Instead, he said something that made my blood run cold. I signed papers. My grip tightened around the phone. What papers? At the hospital, he admitted. After you were born. They told me there was a complication. That asking questions would destroy your mother. Destroy us. So you let them take someone else's baby, I said. And blamed me for it. I was scared, he said. And angry. And weak. Weak. That word finally made sense. You hated me, I said quietly, because hating me was easier than hating yourself. He broke down completely. Full sobs. No control. No pride left. I saw her, he confessed. Your real mother. Years ago. At a grocery store. My chest tightened painfully. She was crying, he continued. Staring at you like she was looking at a ghost. You knew, I whispered. Yes, and you still let me be called an affair child? Yes, he said again. There was no excuse left. Only guilt. Only cowardice. You don't get forgiveness, I told him. Not from me. I know, he said. I didn't want you to hear it from anyone else. Hear what? I asked. His voice dropped to a whisper. The hospital isn't the only thing that's going to fall. My stomach twisted. What do you mean? They're reopening the case, he said. And when they do, names will come out. Whose names? Mine, he said. Your mother's. The nurses. Then he added the sentence that changed everything. And the family who paid to keep you. The call ended. I sat there in silence, my chest burning, because now I understood the final truth. This wasn't just a tragic mistake. This was a crime that had been protected for decades. And the last part of my story wouldn't be about where I came from. It would be about what happened when the truth finally destroyed everyone who tried to bury it. Falling face with Horn's fire. I met her on a Sunday afternoon. A small cafe off a quiet highway. Neutral ground. Safe ground. Or so I thought. The moment she walked in, everything else disappeared. She stopped when she saw me. I stood up without realizing it. We stared at each other like mirrors that had finally been placed face to face after decades apart. She didn't ask if it was me. She knew. "Oh my God," she whispered, one hand flying to her mouth. "It's you." Her voice broke on the last word. I didn't cry. Not yet. She crossed the space between us slowly, like she was afraid I'd vanish if she moved too fast. When she touched my arm, her hands were warm and familiar in a way that made my chest ache. "I held you," she said softly, "for 3 minutes. Before they took you away. 3 minutes. That was all she'd ever had of me. She told me everything. How the hospital said there had been complications. How the baby they brought her back wasn't the same one she'd given birth to, but everyone told her she was hysterical, exhausted, imagining things. How she spent years blaming herself. How she searched quietly, carefully, afraid of being labeled crazy. How the DNA notification hit her inbox like a lightning strike. I screamed, she admitted. Then I threw up. Then I prayed. I finally cried then. Not polite tears. Ugly ones. Because for the first time in my life, someone looked at me like I'd always belonged. The investigation moved fast after that. Too fast. The nurse was arrested. The hospital settled quietly with both families, millions paid in exchange for silence that no longer mattered. My father lost his job when his signed documents surfaced. His reputation collapsed overnight. Friends disappeared. The town turned its back on him the same way he turned his back on me. My mother entered therapy. She wrote me letters she never sent, apologies layered on top of apologies. But some damage can't be undone. We speak now, carefully. As for me, I didn't move back. I didn't erase my past. I added to it. I gained a new family, siblings who share my laugh, my smile, my stubbornness. A father who looks at me with pride, not suspicion. And yet, some nights I still hear my old name whispered like it doesn't belong to me. Because the truth is this. I was raised by people who were afraid of the truth. I was abandoned by silence. I was shaped by cruelty I never deserved. But I wasn't an affair child. I wasn't a mistake. I was stolen. And when the truth finally came out, it didn't just give me answers. It exposed every lie that had kept an entire town comfortable for nearly 3 decades. Some families heal. Some don't. Mine never fully did. But I walked away with something far more powerful than revenge or forgiveness. I walked away knowing exactly who I am. And no one, not a hospital, not a lie, not even blood, gets to take that away from me ever again. Broken heart fire.